This is the fourth sermon in a series of 6 where I'm trying to tell us each week what makes us happy. What makes you happy? And I hope that over the past few weeks that you've agreed with some of the things that I've shared from up here and trying to understand how God facilitates happiness in our experience. You know, the first week we learned that no thing makes us happy. That happiness is in fact tied to a who, not a what. It's tied to those people in our lives that matter, those relationships that contribute to our experience as people. It's not the whats that are out there, whether it's the house, the car, the things. Those don't really ultimately generate happiness. It's a who and not a what. We also learned that happiness is an outcome. It's not immediately attainable. It's an outcome of living day by day with certain principles and certain practices that make a difference, that result in that outcome of happiness. That happiness is not immediate. And we learned that we do that by putting Jesus' words into practice, which leads to happiness. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus started each phrase of those first 8 items of happy are those who do this, happy are those who do that. And then at the end, he told that story of the man building a house on a rock and said that if you put my words into practice, not if you hear them, not if you write them down, not if you memorize them, but if you put my words into practice, then you will find happiness. We also, over the last few weeks, have talked about people that are happy have peace. There's a peace about them. They have peace with themselves. They have a sense of themselves. They understand their strengths and their weaknesses, and they know how to navigate life in a way that keeps them at peace with themselves. They have peace with others, relational peace, that relational interaction that is typified by reconciliation, by grace, by forgiveness, that generates strong relationships, and they're able to manage through those ups and downs and those bumps in relationships and move forward. They're at peace with other people. And I also said that mostly people find themselves at peace with God if they truly have peace. We talked about the fact that some people in the world don't understand God as we do, but they have some sense of a higher power or higher energy in the world. And people who find themselves at peace across the world have a sense of peace with that power. For us, it's God, the God of our life and our love for Jesus Christ. So that peace with God is important, and we also talked about what divides us from God, that sin that separates us. We're born into that nation of sin, and then we are, through Christ, brought into the kingdom of God. So we are born into that macro sin, the sin of the world. We also then encounter sin on a day-to-day basis from our own actions and our own doing. We know that peace with God paves the way to make peace with ourselves and equips us to have peace with others. This is particularly true in the area of money. Today's message is called Happy Money. Now that sounds pretty good, right? Happy money. I'd like to have happy money. It's very important to find peace in this particular area in our lives. How many of us in the way of money have said, you know, I thought I knew what would make me happy. I thought that new house that was bigger and more suited for my family and the size would bring happiness. I thought when I sat behind that Lincoln Continental like Matthew McConaughey, I would feel just like him. Or I thought that if I had this or did that, I would find happiness. I thought I knew what would make me happy, and that statement indicates that I didn't, which means you shouldn't always believe everything you think. I thought it would make me happy. We don't believe everything we think, particularly in the area of money. Now, I believe if we were to take a poll, almost every one of us here would say that there is a connection in our minds and our hearts between happiness and money. We live that way. We act that way. Have you ever heard, either from a pulpit or from somebody else, money won't make you happy? Well, I'm always like you, maybe, just try me. I'm willing to be that experiment. I'm willing to go to bat for that. Well, because we know instinctively that there's a connection between money and happiness, but where we get it wrong is not about just the money itself. It's about this word in particular, more. If I just had more money, I could upgrade in the house and I'd have more equity. I'd have an opportunity to build more value over time. And I get to retirement, I can sell that house and I can have all this. It just goes on, the story goes. If I had more money, I could take that vacation. And, my family really needs that. And it's really all about my wife and kids. It's not about me, but I will go along. We need that vacation. I need more money to do that. Well, let me ask you this question. How much more money would it take to make you happy? I know the answer. I know exactly how much more money you need to make you happy. More than you currently have. That's what we think. Regardless of how much we have, I could be uber wealthy. But if I just had more resources, I could do more. I could even be happier. More money equates to more happiness. Even if I'm moderately income and I have moderate income and so forth, if I just had more than I have now, then I could get there. I could get to where I want to get. Happy people have peace with money as well. How much more money would it take for you to have peace? How much more money than you have now would it take for you to have peace in your relationships in your family, with your kids, with your spouse? More than you currently have. No matter how much we think about it, no matter how much we look at it, we always think more than we currently have would make all the difference. In a couple of minutes, we're going to look at something Jesus said about money, but I want to go back and kind of capture a phrase that we've used in the last 3 weeks. Anything that undermines your peace undermines your happiness. If you mismanage your money, you undermine your peace. It's really about this M word, manage. Jesus actually said that if you don't figure out how to manage your money will manage you. It's not about more, it's about managing. It's not about how much you have, but it's how you manage what you have. The Jesus' words were very powerful, and he really set a standard here that's a challenge, because money contributes to your happiness if you know how to manage it well. And so Jesus, in that vein and looking at that thought, says this to us: no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. No one can serve two masters. And he goes further and says, you cannot serve both God and money. Now, the word translated money here is a Greek word that you probably heard before. It says mammon. Now, mammon was about stuff. It wasn't about just dollars and cents. It was about all of our stuff. So what Jesus is saying is you can't serve both God and stuff. Another interesting aspect of what Jesus says here is that he sets out stuff as the opposite of serving God. We're either serving God or we're serving stuff. It's not serving God or serving Satan or serving evil. It's not serving God or serving ourselves. It's serving God or serving our stuff. It's the opposite of serving God. Nobody ever thinks about money being that, but that's what it is. No one can serve two masters. Either you will love the one, love the other, and hate the one, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. The chief competitor for our heart and our devotion to God is our stuff. Another word for love is devoted. You may not want to think that you love your stuff, but in fact, you're devoted to your stuff. It can be a devotion that we have, a desire to do something. Let me ask a question. Has your desire for something ever caused you to do something? Sure. I wanted that, so I bought it, or I went into debt for it. Or I wanted this, and I made a sacrifice for it, or I persuaded someone else to help me get it. Let's add to the question. Has your desire for something ever caused you to do something stupid? Now, there's not a comma after something. It doesn't say, has your desire for something ever caused you to do something stupid? Has it ever caused you to do something stupid? Now, what's the answer for all of us? Of course, yes. It's caused us to do something stupid. What about this? Has it ever caused you to do something you regret? Of course. Charles Schwab interviewed 250,000 people in a survey. Now, this is nothing profound. We all know it. But these are some of the things people said they either regret spending money on or regret a purchase that they made as well. And one of them is eating so many meals out. One of them is expensive clothes. Think about your wardrobe, your closet. I look at my closet and I probably spend time wearing 10 to 15% of what's hanging in my closet on a day-to-day basis. But I see something that looks nice, I see that new tie, I see that new shirt, and it's just, it's exciting to have that. But sometimes we spend more than we regret spending on that. Some people regret spending money on cars and vacations, and some on new technologies. Some of the purchases people have regretted: boats. The saying is that the two happiest days for a boat owner are the day they buy it and the day they sell it. Boats. The other thing people regret buying is anything as seen on TV. Exercise equipment. I won't confess how many, but the number of exercise equipments in my life I bought and used for a short time, and eventually it's in the way, and I give it away to someone else, or I sell it at a garage sale, something. Exercise equipment. Oh, this is a good one. Timeshares. We're not going to ask for a show of hands if you've ever done it, but timeshares people have found themselves regretting. There are all kinds of things that we buy and we find ourselves devoted to. Devotion to, desire for equals devotion to. When Jesus says, you will love the one and hate the other, you will be devoted to one and not the other. Desire for something equals devotion to that thing. You may not like the word love, but we certainly find ourselves devoted to it. There's a corollary between our devotion and money and our happiness. There's a corollary to that desire and that devotion. The thing that drives our desire is this word right here: discontentment. We will never be satisfied because discontentment feeds that. And what is it that triggers discontentment? It's awareness. If I'm not aware of it, I'm not unhappy about not having it. Now, this is a confessional moment for me. Last Wednesday, I was working on this message, and an email notification popped up on my computer. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't not look. So I stopped my preparation, probably right in the middle of this slide, and looked at this email, and it said, James Taylor and Jackson Brown are coming to the Yum Center. I didn't know. So I picked up the phone and I called Laney and I said, what about this? I said, we could sit on the fourth row for this much money. We probably will never have a chance to see James Taylor again. He's old, we're old. When's that going to happen? Or we can spend this much and be further back, but we can still do it. And we kind of talked through it and said, we've seen Jackson Brown before. And through the conversation and the wisdom of Laney, we said, we just don't want to spend money on that right now. But the amazing thing was, in a 10-minute period of time, I went from not knowing about it to wanting to do it and then being disappointed because I couldn't do it. Awareness makes that happen. The number of times that we buy things online because we see it or we see it on television. Here are a couple of things that the Minton family's purchased recently. Don't get too nervous. That have purchased recently that I didn't know existed until we got them. This eye mask. Tenswa eye massager. Now, you have to understand a little Japanese when you turn it on because it's from Japan, but I'm telling you, this thing is fantastic. And It used to be $89.99, and for $39.99, you can have it by Tuesday. And it works great. But a couple of months ago, I didn't know it wasn't helping me because I didn't know it existed. The next thing, this comfort neck massager. Surely you think there was a lot of stress in the Minton home. We're doing the eye massagers and the neck massagers and all this. But one of our daughters brought hers over, and I'd never seen one before. I was not aware. I had no idea these things existed. And for $63, we had one the next Tuesday. And you can have one too. There's that discontentment that gets fueled by awareness, not knowing it existed. There's that need that we have to drive toward getting things. And it really is fueled by this word right here, which is greed. That part of our discontentment that is fueled is this greed. Now, we see greed in other people, and we recognize it, but we typically don't recognize it in the mirror. Jesus said that greed is the assumption that it's all for my consumption. If it gets placed in your hand, then it's for me. I may give you a little bit. I may give the church a little bit. I may do different things with it. But if it's in my hands, it's mine. It's for me. And if you believe if it's in your hands, it's for you, then we're going to use it on you, not something else. Greed is an appetite that's fueled. That appetite for stuff, that devotion to, is driven by discontentment and awareness. And we live the assumption that everything that comes to us is for ours. And we're going to keep spending and spending and spending, and we're not going to stop because we're Americans. We don't have to stop. Even when the money runs out, we don't have to stop because we can do this. We can borrow money. We don't have to stop. Listen to this carefully. The words, I want is better than I owe. I know that to be true from my own experience and struggles in this particular area at times. When you want something and don't have it, there's a tension. I want it, but I don't have it, so there's a little bit of a tension. But when you have something and can't pay for it, there's also tension. It's better to live with the tension of I want and don't have it than the tension that I owe and can't pay for it. In that, we become a slave to that desire. We owe on things that we wish we'd never purchased or that we can't make payments on. Don't trade your peace for something that can't bring you peace. Peaceful people have peace, or at peace with their money and managing it. Here's the problem with debt. First, let's look at the word I want. I want is between you and God. I want is, I want this, I want the James Taylor tickets, but God speaks to your wife or your husband or your family or someone and says, don't do it. We don't want to do that right now. We don't want to spend it this way. We can't afford it. Ultimately, it's stupid, and we will regret it. Want is between you and God, but here's the tricky part. Debt, once you borrow it and have debt, it's not between you and God anymore. It's between you and the creditor. And guess what? God's on the creditor's side. Because as Christians, we pay our debts. The more money we make, the more tempting it is to go into debt. Imagine trying to explain to a third world person living in a third world country that, in America, we can make more and more money, and the bigger our income gets, the more money we can borrow to do things that we can't afford. Our income level raises our debt level and our capacity, our debt to cash ratio, all those kinds of things. Well, we know that a great goal is to stay out of debt. Don't trade your peace for something that can't bring you peace. Now I'm going to put 3 words up here that sort of revolve around this kind of struggle. Discontentment we've talked about, greed, and we've talked about debt. Which one of these makes you happy? You get those catalogs in the mail and you see something online and you think, man, I am so discontented, it's just fabulous. I can't have this, I can't have that, and I'm just loving it. How many of you just consume and consume and consume and say, I can't satisfy my appetite for these things, and it just makes me so happy to be so desperate? Or we get the bills in the mail, and isn't it fantastic? Look, I owe this, and I can't pay that one, and I can't pay that one. It just makes me so happy. None of those three make us happy. If you want to know how to connect your money to your happiness, do away with these three things. How much money would it take to do away with your discontentment? To do away with your greed? The answer is in management. Jesus said, no one can serve two masters. You cannot serve both God and money. Basically saying that we need to have the phrase in our hearts that, God, I don't want my stuff and my money to manage me. I want you to manage me so that you can help me manage my money and stuff. Now, there are two concepts around this that are important. The word generosity and wisdom. It's put into our hands, and it's not all for us. We need to learn how to be generous, and we need to do it wisely. Here's the 3 steps to managing our money. First, give. It's in our hands, but first we give some back to the church, or we give some to a particular cause, and then we save some. Now, there are very few of us in this world who will ever be totally financially stable where nothing could put us at risk. The uber wealthy, yes. But most of us can't insure against everything, but we can have savings or resources enough and access to resources enough that help us be able to navigate those bumps in the road that come along. Give, save, and then live on the rest and enjoy it. Be free to do that. Giving results in joy. A number of years ago, I was president of our congregation and became aware of a family that routinely contributed to the Acts 2 fund, the fund that we use to help church members who find themselves in unusual circumstances, financial needs, and emergencies. And they gave anonymously to that on multiple occasions and talked about the joy that gave them. They even, at times, would give specifically for a need, a family or something that they became aware of, but insisted on it being anonymous. Now, a couple of us needed to be aware of it in order to help facilitate that. But they talked about the joy that it gave them to be able to give out of their resources and make a difference. Giving provides joy. Saving provides a sense of peace. Again, as I mentioned a moment ago, that opportunity to manage those bumps that come along in the road. And finally, living provides freedom. How to make your money make you happy? Give, save, and live. Saving brings you peace. Joy comes from giving, and freedom living on the rest. As we walk through this message today and we think about peace with money and happy money and how to manage it, at the end of the day, it comes back to this. Money contributes to your happiness if you manage it well. That's the M word. How are you doing with that? Amen.